Recruiting, selecting, and supporting the right school leaders is vital to improve chronically low-performing schools. But states and districts across the country continue to face challenges getting the right leaders in place. One of the most consistent research findings on school turnaround is the presence of a strong school leader. Experts in education are coming together at Cleveland's WVIZ PBS to discuss ways to identify and support successful school turnaround leaders. Taisha Adams will moderate the next hour of conversation. Ms. Adams is a senior technical consultant at American Institutes for Research and leads Regional Educational Laboratory Midwest's School Turnaround Research Alliance. REL Midwest is part of a network of 10 regional educational laboratories funded by the U.S. Department of Education's Institute of Education Sciences. It serves a 7-state region of Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, and Wisconsin. Joining Taisha will be Kirsten LaFlock, Ph.D., Managing Researcher at American Institutes for Research, Carlos McCauley, Director of the Center on School Turnaround, and Melissa Watts, Principal of Robinson G. Jones Elementary School in Cleveland. Today's panelists will discuss the qualities and competencies that characterize effective school turnaround leaders. They also will consider promising tools and practices that support school turnaround leadership efforts. Finally, they will take a closer look at school turnaround in Cleveland, discussing the strategies Principal Watts used to turn around a chronically underperforming school.
Thank you for joining us today to learn more about the role of leadership in turning around low-performing schools. Low-performing schools are those schools that consistently rank in the lowest 5 to 15% on state assessments. One consistent finding in the research is that strong principals lead schools with dramatic achievement gains, and yet recruitment, hiring, development, and retention continue to be a persistent challenge across the country in state education agencies, in districts, and in schools. This topic is also front and center for REL Midwest School Turnaround Research Alliance. The Alliance builds the capacity of its members to both identify and address the challenges that we see related to policy and practice through the use of regional research, technical assistance, and dissemination. School turnaround leadership has been a key priority for our Alliance, and we're excited today to be joined by panelists to have a discussion about the role that school turnaround plays to support quality school turnaround. Today, our panelists will talk about the qualities and competencies that are important, critical to this process, and they'll also share promising tools and practices. We will also take a closer look at school turnaround in Cleveland, Ohio. We're joined by a fantastic school leader who has experience in this environment and is here with us to share some of her insights to support you and all of us in making this world a better place. And so let's go ahead and introduce our panelists, shall we? Today we're joined by Carlos McCauley, who is the director of the Center for School Turnaround. We're also joined by Dr. Kirsten LaFlock, who is the managing researcher at the American Institutes for Research. And as I mentioned before, we're also joined by Melissa Watts, who is the principal of Robinson G. Jones Elementary School in Cleveland. So let's get started with what current research and national trends are telling us.
About school turnaround. So so one of the really consistent findings that we see in research on school turnaround is the importance of having a strong leader, a strong principal in that school. I think there are no cases of school turnaround in which there hasn't also been a really strong principal in place. So I think we feel really confident about the quality of these findings. Researchers have also documented the unique impact that a strong principal has on student achievement, and there's a measurable impact of having a strong leader in place. And it's even a stronger impact among schools with a high percentage of high poverty students. So it's even more important in those schools to get a really strong leader in place. There are a lot of things that the research will tell us about some of the things that strong turnaround leaders will do. But just to get us started, I'll mention two things that I think are well supported by research. So one is that really strong school principals are strategic leaders, which means that they're really careful about looking at data, identifying the problems and the challenges in the school, and finding aligned solutions, and putting these together in a long-term vision for the school. And this might sound really straightforward, but actually we see it less frequently than you would think, and it's a really important way to make sure the school's on track. So in addition to the strategic leadership is taking responsibility for change within the school. And that is not blaming the external environment, not saying, well, the parents aren't stepping up enough, or my students are in a really high poverty context, that's why they're not achieving. Principals in schools that turn around are the ones who say, I'm going to take control for what I can do in my school. I'm not going to say, well, there's a factory that closed in my neighborhood, and so there's a lot of unemployment, or there's a high crime rate, and so that's why we're a low-performing school. They say, you know what? I can't take control for these things, but what I can do is make this the best school possible for my students and to address their needs. And they don't make excuses, they don't pass the buck. So those are two really important things, I think. But even though we know from research some of these things, there's still a whole lot of challenges in getting those principals into the schools that need them.
Absolutely. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add? Or questions?
Well, I'll echo Kirsten's comments as well. I think one of the things we see nationally is that one of the biggest challenges to success at school turnaround at the national level is this leadership issue. And obviously we can talk about, and Kirsten talked about a little bit, the important role that school leaders play. They are the individuals who are setting the goals and driving toward those goals and helping to influence others in terms of staffing and students as well. But we see a few things nationally. First and foremost, there's not enough leaders who are actually turnaround leaders for the schools that are needed the most. And then secondly, by nature, what we see is a school turnaround leader is actually the individual who loves and enjoys the work of going into a school amongst the chaos and actually turning it around and getting it moving into the right direction. Now, having said that, typically that's the individual that loves to go into that type of environment, but then that person leaves, either takes on a role at the district level or moves on to another school, and often isn't the person that then's driving the school towards sustainable success. And so we have this sustainability issue that becomes part of the discussion. And then third, what we see in terms of practice is that we see districts take experienced leaders from other environments and hire this person and say, okay, for lack of better words, go do your magic, without really providing the types of support that we hope to see. And then we find out that one of the things that made this particular person successful in the previous environment, the support from the district, the ability to find answers, et cetera, becomes a challenge in the school turnaround environment because those supports aren't there. Right. And we see this individual then becoming overwhelmed. And so you still begin to see the revolving door. And so this is a very critical issue and very timely discussion. But these are some of the challenges we see nationally around the leadership challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to build on that, there are other policy challenges. If you think about this from the perspective of state or district or national policy, what we know is good in research. It's harder to write policy that actually plays out the way you think it would to help those schools. So, for example, the federal government had the School Improvement Grant Program, which was designed to help the lowest performing schools. And one of the requirements was that the principal was to be replaced, which sounds quite logical given what we know about strong school leaders. But what we saw in practice is that sometimes schools didn't really get the leaders that they need. The district or the state may have put in someone they found who didn't really have the right competencies, or you might have a rural site where they just couldn't recruit the talent that they needed. So there's this tension of knowing what we know from research, but actually getting the policy we need to help the schools.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. And so in light of that and knowing how crucial that role is and the challenges that you have identified, how can districts identify that right person to lead a turnaround school?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like to say we have to, we think about systems and districts, we have to think differently about our human capital piece. What we see nationally is that, as we think about turnaround schools, districts taking on a role of recruiting. And this isn't an issue that we're going to hire our way out of. We also have to think about how do we develop, how do we support those individuals as well. And so thinking differently around our human capital piece, where we are beginning to think about how do we get our best persons, our best principals, our best teachers, in our most challenged schools, and then how do we support them? How do we build toward real sustainable success? And that is a human capital challenge. And we have to, as districts and as systems, begin to rethink the way we think about our human capital structures at the school and district levels.
What do you feel is one of the first critical steps in turning around a school?
I think the first and most important step is creating a safe environment. You need to establish a culture, an environment that's conducive to learning, where our children feel safe, both physically and emotionally, and also safety and security for our teachers, that they feel that whatever support or resource they need, they know where to get it, they know how to access it. I think the first step is always that safe environment.
Excellent.
And I like to call that, to Melissa's point, I like to call that setting the conditions. You have to set the conditions for success. Because if you can't set the conditions for success, how do we then move toward it? So I love Melissa's point. I agree 100%.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that also speaks to the challenge of retention. And so I wonder, in my follow-up question to that, or what are some strategies that can be used to retain these successful turnaround leaders?
Well, one thing that I would point out is when there are studies of teacher retention and teacher turnover, very rarely do teachers leave the profession because of the kids. They leave because of other situations, and generally because they're not receiving the support that they need as professionals to want to stay in that building. And I don't know if that resonates with your experience as well.
I think it completely translates over to the principal role. We need, especially in a turnaround setting, we need the support at the district level from our network leaders, from central office as a whole. We need the same kind of support, professional development.
I'm going to go ahead and ask Melissa a question about the landscape here in Cleveland, the school turnaround landscape, and specifically the work and the landscape at Jones Elementary.
Robinson G. Jones was first identified as a turnaround school as part of the Cleveland Plan. The Cleveland Plan was developed in 2012, where CEO Gordon identified 13 schools to invest extra resources and efforts into turning around the schools. He took the 13 schools and put them into 3 different categories. A readiness to act, which meant basically they were going to start over with the entire staff. A readiness to teach, which meant that they were going to focus on the environment first. They had to get all the pieces and parts, behavior management, protocols and that in line before they could move forward. And the final one is readiness to learn, which is where R.G. Jones fell into. And what that meant was that first we had to instill a sense of shared accountability amongst the staff. We had to get the buy-in from all participants, regardless of position, that they're responsible for every child. The days of staying in the room and worrying about your 24 kids, that's gone. For a school to truly turn around, it takes everybody. So they had to come out of the room and share responsibility and accountability for it. The second one was personalization of instruction. We work by the motto that our teachers don't teach lessons, they teach kids. It's not about, well, I went through the book and I taught it, they just didn't get it. They have to step back, and they all truly do. They step back, they look at the data, they look at the assessment results, they pinpoint through diagnostic assessments, for example, pinpoint what each child needs, and they readjust their lessons and plan accordingly. So those were the first two major goals.
Nice. And actually, I have a question here from the audience that actually relates to what you were just talking about, and that's about getting parents involved in this process. Can you speak a little bit about that?
I'm very proud to say that's one of the biggest things that turned around at R.G. Jones. We are lucky enough to have a wraparound service. So we have a site coordinator whose sole position is just that, bringing the community into the school, opening the doors, here we are, come see what we do, be a part of it, giving them a voice in the process. So it's tremendous. We've more than tripled the parent participation since we began a little over 2 years ago. For example, on Friday we have a spin-off of Bring Your Kid to Work Day. We have Bring a Grown-Up to School Day. So the parents come in with our kids in the beginning, they have breakfast, they go to the classroom, they have lunch, they realize they experience the kids' school day. It's a fantastic day. The first year we had over 300 people attend. Last year we were closer to 400, and I'm confident this Friday they'll be parking blocks away. There'll be so many.
Excellent.
That's wonderful. I just wanted to say congratulations to Melissa for boosting parent involvement to those levels, because I know from visiting other schools, it's a pretty heavy lift getting parents involved, so that's wonderful.
Yeah. There's one other thing that Melissa said that I think is really critical. She talked about the commitment. And the commitment really boils down to your belief. If you don't believe that all kids can succeed, then it's hard for you to be part of this turnaround approach. I like to call it proving what's possible.
Right.
Because your beliefs impacts your behaviors and it impacts your practices as well. And so it becomes very critical as part of setting the conditions for success that the people that are a part of this turnaround effort actually believe and are committed to this effort, and they believe it's possible and proving what's possible. And I applaud you for that being a major strategy of the work that she just highlighted, because that becomes the basis for this. If you don't believe, you can't be part of this, the turnaround effort.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Melissa, for sharing a little bit about R.G. Jones during our last segment, and we're really excited to learn more about the work that you're doing there. So we'd love to hear from you about the approach you took to the work.
The approach I took to start the work, to begin the turnaround efforts, was basically to make a priority list. You can imagine the very nature of a turnaround school. It's a long to-do list of all the different things you have to do. So we took the list, met with my team, we took the list, and we were very strategic about it. We put everything on paper, then we divided it into two separate categories. As Kirsten mentioned earlier, it was what we could control and what was out of our control. So we focused on the circle of control, what we could do something about. It's too easy too often to get in the blame game, as you were talking about earlier, where it's not my fault the parents don't bring the kids on time, or it's not my fault because the parents don't do the homework. So we worked very hard, diligently, to change the mindset of the staff. Yes, we know that's a problem, but what are you going to do about it? It's still incumbent upon us as the professionals to figure out a way to help and make it work anyway. So that was our very first approach, was to make that priority list and identify the things that we could influence.
I love the fact that you took the time to set this priority list and to think about what is the sequence of activities, because too often we see schools try to do everything at once, right, and then you can't do anything well. So what were some of the things on that priority list?
The first thing on the list, and remember the plan was created originally with combined efforts from the district level and the building level. So step one was to replace the principal, and I'm the replacement principal. I'm still there. The second was to replace some of the staff, so we had to go through that. The third, and to me, probably the most important, was signing a commitment letter. Part of the Cleveland plan, we created a letter for each of the 13 schools specific to each individual school. And the basic premise of the letter was saying that as a staff member to RG Jones, I recognize that I cannot continue to do the same old things and expect different results. That practices had to change dramatically, and that everyone had to commit to going above and beyond what they've done in the past. So that was a huge one on the priority list. Other things on the priority list included the addition of the wraparound program, the addition of instructional programs. Another large portion of the priority list was professional development. We spent a lot of time, the leadership team and myself, focusing on first what we knew the school had to produce and be capable of, and then what our teachers needed to be able to produce it. So we made, it wasn't generic PD, it was professional development, really focused and purposeful on what they needed at what time. Some things that they needed the first year, they were pretty solid with, so we could focus on something else for the second year. So that was the priority list for RG Jones.
And if I can piggyback on something Melissa just stated, there's two things that we see kind of common across successful turnaround schools, well, schools that have had some success around turnaround. One, you mentioned the wraparound services. The wraparound services we see creates an opportunity and the space to retool the relationship between the school and the community. And not just the family, but thinking of the community and organizations that play a role in supporting through this wraparound service effort. The second thing that we see pretty common as well is in those schools that are showing some success is retooling and rethinking professional development. It's not that drive-by professional development. It's actually creating the space where teachers and staff are learning from and alongside each other. And it's a continual learning that allows you to then change practices as well, but build those teams. And we see that common in those schools that have shown some success in turnaround. So I wanted to highlight those two things you stated.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you use the word purposeful in describing the professional development, because, and I think that's consistent with like being a strategic leader, is making sure that the professional learning opportunities are aligned with your bigger vision for the school and the teacher's needs. And like too often we see like a catalog of professional development, or it's just an afternoon workshop, and the teachers do their time, but then it doesn't like give them anything to take back to the classroom. But it sounds like you've been thinking a lot about that.
We were very strategically with that part of the process for PD. We don't believe in the one-hit wonders that run and get 2 hours of PD and then, oh, this is great, and then we forget about it tomorrow. We continuously do things, we call them booster shots. We revisit the PD over and over again. We might have the one full day of 6 hours, but then once a month, once every other week, we'll have little booster shots, 20 minutes, 40 minutes, something just to keep it front and center.
Yep, that's great.
And the other part that you had referred to with the wraparound services, I think it's a huge mindset change with my staff, which is incredible to see at RG Jones, that we have to address the whole child. We can't just limit ourselves to the academics. We can't ignore the fact that the child comes to school with so much baggage and other things going on. So we really focus on the entire child. That's where the beauty of the wraparound comes in.
And so you talked about the priority list, but what was the process? What did it look like? Can you kind of walk me through what did that look like? So we're going to prioritize the list. How do you even go about that? As Kirsten indicated, that's oftentimes the greatest challenge, because everything is important. Everything is critical. And so what were some of the strategies that you were able to use with you and your team to really identify those 3 areas, PD, the commitment letter, et cetera?
The first thing that we did, we took that huge list and we took all the data. We created the list from the data. We had done completed surveys when the whole process began that went out to students, staff, families, community members, anybody and everybody, so that they could have a voice in the process, a voice in the change that they wanted to see at the school. So we took all that information, plus of course the scores and all that kind of thing, and we made the list. Then we took the list and started chunking things. Which ones kind of went together, could kind of throw into the same category. And we
So for example, would it be like school culture might be in one clump category, or, you know?
Absolutely, and that's pretty much the one of the major ones, one of two that we came out with was the safety and security of the building. Not just behavior-wise, but more that every student and staff member felt safe and secure in the building, both physically. We simply had to get behavior management under control. We had to put procedures and protocols in place and raise the expectations. You know, we had to tell the kids, yes, you will walk in a line because we know you can. So we had to get the basics done. That was a given. But along the lines with safe and secure, we needed our staff to feel safe and secure. So we did a lot of things of streamlining different protocols and procedures. If the teacher wanted to plan a field trip, we didn't want that to become this huge thing and she couldn't focus on education. We streamlined, okay, you do this, you go there for support, the paperwork is here. We supported her. So we were all about procedures, safety, and security. And simultaneously, the second priority was building trust. We had to build trust. A huge part of the success I think we had was building trust with the staff, the students, the community. When I first came in, was announced as the principal of R.G. Jones, I was met with some apprehension. Nobody's fault. People were just afraid of change. They just leave us alone, close the door, we're fine, that kind of a thing. So when I went in there, I had to develop that trust, had to, attempted to inspire the people to believe in me and believe in, basically buy what I was selling. And I did that by creating a shared vision. I wanted them to see that I meant it. I believed in it. I truly believed that, our kids deserve better. It was that simple. So those two things, safe and secure environment and building trust.
Wow. Okay.
I think that point about trust is so important as well. I mean, and that's also pretty prominent in research on school improvement, but it's tricky to do. But in order for teachers to improve, they have to feel like they trust you as a leader to share where they're struggling. So I think that's just a wonderful point. And I heard recently a great quote that progress moves at the speed of trust. And I think that it sounds like your school has exemplified that.
Absolutely.
All right, so what changes did you ultimately see? The approach and these strategies?
I think the biggest change that I saw, that it's incredible to walk in my building and see it, is the mindset change of the staff. The staff truly collaborates, they work together, the motto, we joke, no man is left behind. If anybody has a need, everybody steps up and helps. When we first came there, it was a little bit more of the old-fashioned, close your door and worry about the 20 kids within your classroom, and my scores are the only ones that count. And now to walk in 2.5 years later, it's all of our kids. Nobody has 20 kids. Anyone who works at R.G. Jones has 500. Everyone is responsible for 500. So that is my proudest moment, is to see that when I walk into the building.
Amazing, amazing. Any other questions for Melissa?
The one thing that I think that comes out is this. I agree with the trust statement. The other thing that I hear Melissa talk about is this common language, because it becomes so important that everyone begins to not only speak with this common language, but believe with this common language as well. What are we trying to do? How we're doing it? Where's my support? Et cetera. And so you all of a sudden hear and you see in the school that Melissa's talking about and leading, you see a learning environment being created, which is great, because it's not just the kids that are learning now, it's the adults learning as a part of this as well. And so I wanted to commend you for that.
Thank you. And one of the things that we do to support that, we constantly have new compliance issues come down. One more report to do, one more thing to do, whether it's state level or district level. And our teachers, rightfully so, they feel overwhelmed a lot of times. But we really focus on supporting each other while they're doing it, but also telling them why. Helping them connect the dots. This is not one more thing. If you do this, it relates to that.
Absolutely.
And once you share that understanding, you know, it just makes the whole process much easier.
That's great.
And so I wonder, so you're creating this environment, but then there's always going to be more teachers and coming in. And so how do you create the conditions upon which a new teacher can thrive in an environment that may be different from the one that they're coming from?
Well, the first thing is we're lucky now because in the past, well, up until 2 years ago, we were not able to hire our own staff members. It was a seniority-based type of deal, and people were placed in the building. But now, part of the Cleveland plan, that's changed, so we can interview. I have a fantastic interview team at my school, and
Who's on that interview team?
people up in the audience right there.
But what roles do they play at
They're
the school?
the assistant principal, instructional coach, project manager, the union chair, and then depending on what position, if it is a special ed position, a special ed teacher, or paraprofessional, it's paraprofessional, like that.
Right.
So there's quite a few of us. We make sure we want every voice at the table, but during the interview process, we tell them exactly what it means to be an investment school. This is what we expect. You need to sign the commitment letter to be a part of the team. So they're not coming in blind. They understand exactly the high expectation, and the interview team are pretty good at selling it, so people buy it.
We do have a question from the audience, and they are wondering what kind of extracurricular activities are offered at R.G. Jones?
Well, that will take me about 10 minutes to list all of those activities. We have a fantastic program as part of the wraparound services. We call it The Edge. It's we saw a need at the school, as we were talking about earlier, where kids, you know, they can't do homework because parents work or whatever reason. So we created a 2-hour after school, Monday through Thursday. The students get a dinner from the Cleveland Food Bank. Then they have about 40 minutes of homework help, and then they get to do an activity. And the list of activities is endless. They swim, they yoga, they do rowing, they do music and dance and yoga, and I can't even list them all. We try to, you know, let everybody find something that they're good at. Everybody doesn't want to do basketball, so we try to expose them to a lot.
And what impact would you say those extracurricular activities have had on the success of the turnaround?
I think it has a huge impact. It's one of those, back to changing the mindset of everybody involved in the school. The kids want to come to school. They're excited about it. They like their teachers. They like what they're doing in the class. And if they, you know, have a good day in class and they get to school, we're all about attendance, they get to participate in the activities. So it's a huge positive factor.
Excellent, excellent. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. Any questions from the audience? Maybe we've got a couple that'll make its way to us. But while we're waiting, wanted to dive a little bit more deeply into teacher leadership. And so you talked a lot about you know, the commitment letter and their participation in identifying the priority list as well as in the interview process. I'm wondering how it seems like you've already spoken a little bit about providing teachers with opportunities to lead, but I was wondering if you had any additional efforts around providing leadership opportunities for teachers in your building.
We have a very deliberate effort along those lines, actually. We call it ILT, the Instructional Leadership Team. And right now it's made up of, I think we're up to 17 people. because it's an open invitation. If it's a huge commitment, they had to come in for free on their own time during the summer for 2 days, do PD. I mean, it's a huge commitment on their part. And I wanted to cry when I saw the list of all the people who wanted to participate. 17 said, I'll do it, all that extra work. But they did it, they do it faithfully. They take charge of all the different committees. So like 2 people will be in charge of our attendance, 2 people will be in charge of safety and that kind of thing. But we meet together, we make big decisions together. I always tell them I'm not going down alone. This is not Melissa running the show, it's everybody. So we talk about it, we brainstorm, we follow deliberate protocols during the meeting so we don't get sidetracked. But everybody on the leadership team has a voice, and I think that is the biggest testament to the growth and progress that we've made at R.G. Jones, because you could have the smartest guy in the room, but it's always going to be better if everybody has a voice.
Absolutely. And I mean, just as we've pointed out at the outset of the importance of having strong leaders in turnaround schools, an important feature of that is actually distributed leadership as well, and engaging a lot of people in the important decisions, and it sounds like you've been doing that. And another reason why that's so important is for sustainability. The more you build that expertise in your team, the greater the likelihood that you'll be able to keep this strong student achievement that you've been experiencing.
In addition to possessing the right competencies and skills, I also want to take a moment to talk about the external supports that are necessary that can be provided at either the state or the district level. So we'd love to hear from my panelists on that topic.
Sure. So I think about the district role. I think there are a lot of things that the district can do to support principals in turnaround schools, and I'll speak to just 2 of them for now. One is to ensure that principals have opportunities for their own professional learning. Like we've talked about teacher professional development, but I think principals need access to opportunities for professional learning as well. One of the things that they can do that I've seen in one district that I visited is the district convened principals from a whole set of turnaround schools that they could get together. They had structured time every month to meet, to talk about data in their school, to talk about maybe what they were struggling with, to bounce ideas off of each other, and to really provide the opportunity for them to grow professionally and get that support. And the second thing that I think districts can do to support principals in turnaround schools is to give them the autonomy that they need to make decisions for their school. And a huge area here is with regard to human capital and hiring. So making sure that principals have the opportunity to weigh in on hiring decisions, which it sounds like Melissa has this. And because cultivating that team of teachers in your school is so important. But too often we see cases where principals are in struggling schools and they don't have any say in who is making up their team. So those 2, I think, professional learning and some autonomy for decision making is really important.
Yeah. And I echo those same sentiments. I think we see and continue to see networks that are created at the district level and even at the state level. Sometimes we often see there are principals or even assistant principal networks that are create the space for peer-to-peer learning. Not only with the current principal, but APs as part of leaders of leadership teams and the next wave of principals as well. And the other thing, I think the autonomy piece is a very critical piece, particularly as we think about staffing. We've seen examples in the recruitment of principals to take on turnaround, and some of those examples have included, you have the autonomy and the ability to bring 50% of your staff or 25% of your staff with you. That enters into this new school that you take on. The one other thing I would say is, and going back to kind of this learning community, as learning organization, the district and the system thinking about also how to work with the principal supervisors, because they are oftentimes the individuals they're working hand in hand with the principal. And so ensuring that they too can know how to support principals as well becomes very critical in that district role, where you're as a principal, you have the support, and particularly your immediate person that you're working with weekly, daily in terms of a principal supervisor to ensure that you all are on the same page to help move the school forward as well, and that you're gaining the right support as well, because that is also the individual a lot of times that is articulating what you need as a principal in the role of principal supervisor as well.
I'm curious to know, Melissa, what kind of supports you receive from the district or others?
Well, after listening to Kirsten and Carlos, I think CMSD is on the right track. We have all of those in place, actually, right now. Part of investment, well, part of all CMSD schools, we do have more autonomy over choosing our teachers, choosing our staff members. We definitely have that. The professional development for principals, we meet with all principals. We have 107 schools in Cleveland. We meet once a month, faithfully. Then, in addition, we also meet once a month with investment principals, the turnaround principals. We have another meeting. In addition to that, we have PD, outside consultants, that kind of thing, specifically for investment schools. And the beauty of that, it's not limited to the principal. They come in and they train myself and my leadership team so that we all speak the same language and have the same vocabulary. The final one, as you mentioned, they're also doing it with the assistant principals. So my assistant principal meets monthly with other assistant principals within the district.
That's amazing. Thank you. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about some of the resources, that are provided through the Center on School Turnaround.
Yeah, we're fortunate at the center to have a kind of a national view, and so we work with states across the country, school districts and schools across the country. We created a couple things. One, we've created a school turnaround learning community. We have over 30,000 members registered, and that includes teachers in schools, principals, district officials, state officials, policymakers as well. So there's a lot of resources on the school turnaround learning community. You can almost do a search by topic area and see a list of resources. As a part of the school turnaround learning community, we actually also try to engage conversations as well. And so around this topic here, principal leadership, we've had several engagements on what do we mean and what is needed as we think about principal leaderships and thinking about this pipeline issue. And so sometimes that's a district presenting and allowing for further engagement. Sometimes it's a state talking about a state effort. And so the school turnaround learning community is really is a place and a space that you can go, whether you're at the school level, district level, state level, to see some of these resources. Also, from a center standpoint, the other thing that we want to do is we not only want to highlight some of the efforts that are underway, part of our charge is also being able to anticipate where we're moving and where states are moving, where districts are moving as well in terms of hot topics as well. And so you begin to see trends that really surface across districts, across schools, and across states, and that we try to get out in front and bring into the national conversation as well.
What information is used to identify these trends?
Yeah, so we actually do, we continue to do not only an annual survey, but a repeated survey of states, districts as well. Our case study work around any given topic as well. This particular topic being one, we recently released our competencies work, which is a module that has 3 parts. First, what do we mean by competencies? What do we mean by a turnaround principle? What's needed? The second piece of that is recruiting and selecting turnaround principals. And the third piece of that is how do we support turnaround principals? And before we released parts 1 and 2, and we're on the verge of releasing parts 3, we've piloted this in states and in districts. And almost in each instance, the districts or the states were ready to go into the recruitment and the selection. And after we actually talked about competencies and what do we mean and what do we need, there was almost, in each time, there was an aha moment to say, well, that makes a lot of sense. We haven't had that conversation. What do we need? What are the right competencies we're looking for? So a lot of that comes about because through our surveys for the past 3.5 years, actually, the top 2 topic has been, 1, principals. It's not enough of them in turnaround schools. How do we develop them? How do we support them? Where do we find them? And then the second piece is the district piece. How do we engage districts into supporting the turnaround work? And sometimes that district piece kind of breaks off into the school boards. How do we engage school boards as well? And so those have been, over the past 3.5 years, our top 2 areas of need through our surveys and through our case study work.
Okay, well, thank you. So we're going to go into, I've got some audience questions, kind of a potpourri of some of the things that we discussed today. And wanted to talk a little bit about some of the effective methods around promoting social-emotional learning, particularly with students to help them succeed. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, in CMSD, we have a curriculum specifically for that. I don't know, maybe 6-7 years ago, the district identified a major need for social-emotional learning. So we added it to our scope and sequence, and we use a specific program. It's K-5, pre-K to 5 actually, and next year we're adding it to 6th, 7th, and 8th. But it directly, explicitly teaches our students how to respond when they're upset, when they're in a situation that they're uncomfortable, that kind of thing. So it's explicitly teaching them responses, but more importantly, it's consistent pre-K to 5. So they're learning it and reinforcing it grade after grade.
We had a follow-up question on wraparound services. And so I wanted to hear a little bit more about specifically what services are provided at Jones, and from our other panelists, other wraparound services that you've heard of, so feel free to chime in. Sure. And then how do you pay for it?
That's a good question. We are very fortunate. CMSD partnered with the United Way here in Cleveland. And the United Way has supported financially the wraparound services in all the investment turnaround schools. Wow. So they made a 3-year commitment, and see how it goes, that kind of thing. And proud to say ours is a huge success. But the services they provide are literally limitless. Anybody comes in, and remember, it's not just about the child, it's about the family, because we need the family to help support the child so the child can succeed. So we do, our wraparound site coordinator, she helps them find resources from as simple as he needs a new winter coat to he needs, the electricity got turned off in the house and it's the middle of winter. That they find themselves homeless, or they have medical needs, or those kind of things. I mean, the services are limitless. What the entire program is based on, the services exist in the city of Cleveland, in Cuyahoga County. They're out there. They're just oftentimes hard to access. So this person, this position, is the connector between the two. The families can come in, share their need, and this person helps find it.
Okay.
I mentioned earlier that I love the idea of the wraparound services that Melissa talked about, because it creates the opportunity to build different types of school to community relationships. But more importantly, and Melissa touched on this as well, is thinking about the whole child. And we're beginning to see some research on trauma and students that, but this is a great area of need, and I commend Melissa and her staff because we don't see enough of this being a part of the school turnaround piece, and I think it's a critical piece that needs to be part of it.
Yeah, and I think people might be surprised sometimes to see the scope of services that are provided, particularly in schools that are successful in school turnaround. I mean, I've been in schools where teachers will have like an extra closet of clothing for students if they come to school, and it's clear that that student doesn't have clean clothes that day. I've been in schools where they actually have a washer and dryer, where they will wash students' clothing, that has medical services or dental services. I mean, these are like forward-thinking schools. They try to put these things in place because then you're able to have this child in class ready to learn.
Exactly, and that's the biggest goal, that they're ready to learn. It's nobody's fault, it's not the parents' fault. Whatever life circumstances surround the child prevents them. But we have Case Dental comes in and they set up their dental chairs in our gym, and they clean our kids' teeth, and they do the whole 9 yards there. They get free eyeglasses. Winter coats, we have the uniform bank like you're talking about. We have so many services for them.
Great. Wow, thank you. And so, besides the resources that we've highlighted today, I'm curious to know how schools can find out about state and district turnaround supports. Any other thoughts?
Well,
Closing
actually,
thoughts?
Kirsten actually led a group that went in and looked at some analysis around promising practices that we're seeing in SIG schools, School Improvement Grant schools. And so there are a number of promising practices that are out, and some of them are even the profiles are listed on the Center on School Turnaround's website and within the school turnaround learning community as well. But also states are beginning to highlight, and I've seen districts begin to highlight some of those promising practices, because the goal has been to build on those promising practices. And it's not just in one school in any given district or in one district in any given state. People are now beginning to look at scaling those efforts. And so you're starting to see on states' websites, you're starting to see on districts' websites, the highlighting of promising practices as well.
Right, right. So we're coming to the end of our time. So I want to take a moment to thank our panelists today for the insights that they've shared. Thank you so much for the work that you do to impact and change the landscape so that every child has access to high quality public schools. Also wanted to think about a couple of takeaways from our conversation. One, getting the right people. It sounds like that's the starting point. It was the first on the list that you'd mentioned, Melissa, and just again, seeing how much responsibility and opportunity that person can bring to the position really matters. The second is really around the autonomy. So you get the right person, but then you hamstring them. No, you have got to give them opportunities to be able to hire and be involved in that, not only be involved in the hiring process, but being in charge of the design of that process. So you engaged a lot of different stakeholders in that process. And I think that really has a huge impact. The third is really around that shared responsibility. Again, that you bring on this great staff, but then you need to have that distributed leadership, as Kirsten mentioned before. The system of support. So again, you've talked a lot about supporting teachers. Carlos talked about the need of not only supporting principals, but also the supervisors of principals. That it is a lifelong cycle of support, and really everyone needs support. And then lastly, the piece around, oh wow, that was it. Those were the four. I just like odd numbers, I think is what it is. I think the oddness sets me up for enjoying this part of the work. Alas. Well, please visit REL Midwest at www.relmidwest.org to get access to this broadcast as well as an archive of other broadcasts. And we also have supporting resources and documents there. Thank you so much for viewing this broadcast, and have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye-bye.